على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح ربي زدني علما ربي هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربي يسر ولا تؤسر وتمم بالخير اللهم إني أسألك العافية اللهم إني أسألك العافية اللهم إني أسألك العافية آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh once again. Alhamdulillah, we are going to talk about ayah number 104 from Surah Al Imran by the grace and tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we will start with the recitation and the meaning first. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
وَلْتَكُن مِّنكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ.
So in the previous ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about that we should do two things. We should hold on tightly to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should not be divided amongst groups and everything. And now we are continuing from that Allah ta'ala is giving us further instructions as a group, as an ummah, as how to handle different things. And we remember that this is coming from that incident where the group of Sahabas were together and they almost broke into fight again, but then they came back and they understood, and so we are learning then the tactics of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us the ways of how to be an ummah, how to be together, how to behave together, and what are the strategies that that will help us. So previous ayah was individual level, and this ayah is going to talk about the communal level. As a group of Muslims of ummah, what should we do? Okay, so wal takun. So wa and so it shows that it's continuing from the previous ayah. Wal takun, and let there be, kun like to be. So wal takun, and let there be, minkum, from amongst you, ummatun. Ummatun, a group of people, and ummah is a group of people that is united by a particular purpose. It's not as opposed to a qaum. A qaum would be a group that has the same nationality, or that has the same, let's say, the color of skin, or the same language that they speak. But ummah is a group of people that is united for a purpose. Like even it is used for the people that Musa alayhi salam saw when he went to Madian, the group of shepherds who were having who were letting their animals drink. For that group also Allah Ta'ala used this word ummah, right? And also ummah comes from the same root as the word imam, something that is in the front, something, and also from the same root is tayammum, like a purpose. You're doing something for a purpose, right? So ummah is a group of people that are joined together for a purpose. And this whole Muslim ummah, the whole Muslim community is also called an ummah in our religion, right? So we are all together in ummah as well. And it could refer to like a group of people as well. So like the ummah in, let's say, North America, the ummah in like Canada, the ummah of the Muslims in this place. It could also refer to a group like that. So there should be amongst you a group of people. And minkum, there's also an opinion that it could also be one thing is it could be like from you, from amongst you, and it could also be min of bayaniya, meaning like there should be amongst you that is a group of people. So like it could also refer to like that, like all of like your ummah should be like this. Or it could also be that amongst you there should be a group of people. And what should those people do? Yad'una ila al-khair. There are three things that we are going to be taught in this ayah. So the first point is yad'una ila al-khair. They call people da'wah. Yaduna, it's like from dawa, and dawa is inviting somebody. So they invite people to al-khair. Al-khair, the good, the best. Al-khair is superlative, right? So khair is like better, and al-khair is the best, right? So they invite people to the best. وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And the second point is وَيَأْمُرُونَ, and they enjoin, meaning they command. Amar is to command. So they enjoin people, they command people, or they advise people bil ma'ruf, towards the something that is maruf, towards something that is well known, that is right, that is so right that it is well known to be right. وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, and forbidding that which is wrong, which is munkar. Nakara, like we do like something that is wrong, something that is evil. Wa ulaika, and those humul muflihun, and those who do these three things, they are from the ones who are muflihun, from the they are the ones who are successful. And falah, like we've talked about before, falah refers to a farmer, and the different words in Arabic used for different stage of farming. Falah is the stage of farming when you are harvesting the crop. So when you are literally getting, you worked so hard for so long, and for so long it did not feel like success. It was like hard work, hard work, hard work, and everything. But now falah is the time where the farmers actually reaping the success of the benefits of all that work, the harvest and everything. So that are successful. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that there has to be among you a group of people, um, who call towards the good and bid the fair and forbid the unfair. And it is those people, like these people, who will be from the who will be the ones who will be successful. So first of all, like connecting from the last ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us at the individual level, what should we do? We should hold on tight to the rope of Allah, and we should not be divided in groups. And when we are not divided, when we come together, then what will happen is, then now it is about how to deal with other people together. When we are dealing with other people, what do we do? Like for example, let's say we clean our house, like we there were some dirt, there were some things, we've cleaned our house. Now when other people are coming, what we do is we stop them from bringing their dirty slippers inside, otherwise it will get dirty again, right? So we ask, like whenever kids are coming from outside and they have all this, like we've just cleaned the whole house, everything's clean, and we ask them, no, okay, your slippers are full of mud, they've just played outside and everything. We say, okay, no, you take off your shoes there, or you wash it up and everything, and then you come inside, right? So if we don't do that, what will happen is things will get dirty again, right? Uh, so now we are going to learn that, like, how do we deal with other people in terms of to maintain that. We have to do individually, but then there's also things we have to do collectively when we're dealing with people, right? And sometimes what will happen is, and it is natural that sometimes we start to work on ourselves and our deen, or improving ourselves, or getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or so some changes will happen in our life, whether it's in our outer appearance or our inside, our way of thinking changes about a lot of things, and slowly Allah ta'ala changes. Like if we don't even, Quran has this quality that we don't even recognize, but slowly it changes us. If we look at ourselves, like when we first got in touch with the Quran, when we first heard something about the Quran, to then, as we start getting more and more understanding of the Quran, if we look back and see what was my life like at that time, what was my way of thinking, what different things at that time, there's a world of difference. But then Quran just changes so gently that we don't even realize sometimes. But when we look back, we see what a major change there is about the priorities in life, about how we act and everything. And then when so much of us, we don't realize it, that so much is changing in us, but people around us see those changes, right? And sometimes what happens is that that distances us from the people we live with, the people we interact with, because it's like they don't see the same person anymore. And sometimes it might be a little bit of a, almost like a shock kind of a thing, but they're not, it's like, okay, you used to be a different person, like what's happening to you and everything. And they just, they don't understand sometimes, and there's a distance that starts coming. And what happens is that sometimes we feel like a stranger amongst others. Sometimes we feel like, like we are not belonging in this. Like we used to belong so well in this group, this was my group of people, my group of friends, or my group of family, but then I just don't connect with them anymore. And then when we are in these situations, as these situations will come up, right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us strategy. He doesn't leave us alone even in that time, those times. He gives us strategies. Quran gives us, as we interact more and more with the Quran, it is literally, Quran is, one of the names of the Quran is guidance, and it guides us in every aspect. Even when we are feeling those things, when we are standing up for the sake of Allah, and when we are facing these things, Quran will guide us on, okay, how do you deal with that now, right? So first of all, it was self correction through taqwa and holding on to the Quran and Sunnah. And now it's about collective goodness, like keeping ourselves, but then we'll have to work on correcting others too. It's a part of our deen, right? So there has to be like, as a Muslim ummah, what are we called to do? We have been told to do three things that we learned from this ayah: call to khair, call people to the khair, and bid people for towards the fair and forbid the unfair. And how do we do that, right? So first thing is al khair, right? As opposed to khair itself, right? It's al khair, meaning superlative, the best. The Prophet ﷺ told us to the effect that al khairu huwa ittiba al Qurani wal sunnati, meaning that al khair, the goodness, right? The best, the is it is what it is the following of, it is the ittiba, it is obeying, it is following the Quran and the Sunnah, right? So sorry, al khair could mean different things when we are inviting different people towards khair. So it could mean when we're talking to a new somebody who's not a Muslim, it might mean Islam itself. It might mean educating a Muslim child, or somebody, even a grown up who doesn't know much about Islam, and or the deeper meanings of the Islam or the Quran, to educate them about the necessary injunctions or the morals in Islam. Or it could also mean to produce a group of experts in the sciences of Quran, to have a group of people amongst the whole community, at least some people who are experts in the sciences of the Quran, who would engage in deeper studies and everything. So like just like for our kids, we want some basic education for them. We want them to finish their elementary schools and everything. We want them to know the basic, that they can read, they can find their way around and everything. But then some children would do more. Some children would do more. Like some of us will have different professions. Some of us will be experts in this or that. And inshallah, Allah Ta'ala will raise some people who will do much more. Even in worldly education, we look for, okay, somebody in the family should be a doctor. Somebody in the family is a, like we have somebody in our family who's a lawyer, who's a police officer, who's this, like we look for that, generally speaking, right? So even in terms of religious knowledge, even in terms of knowing that, it is a good idea for a community to think that they should have, or they should be connected to somebody. Like not everybody is going to be a scholar, but then we should have some connection with some scholar, that okay, that we don't just create things, we have somebody to fall back on, and that scholar has a higher scholar to fall back on. So this deen is to connect ourselves and somehow keep connected to the Quran and Sunnah. And when we are connected to the Quran and Sunnah, the revival process starts, right? And even if there's communities which are very very far, which have come very far away from the Deen or the teachings of the Deen, or there are, let's say, generations of people who don't know much about Islam, except that oh, there's something called Eid, right? Like that's going on, and it's like a festival, right? And like, or they know, like over the generations they've lost what they don't really know much else about it, right? But when we attach ourselves to the Quran and Sunnah and we start the work with somebody, at least there is going to be a ripple effect. And sometimes we won't know which generation will bear the fruit of the work that we are doing. Sometimes there's some scholars during their lifetime, there was not much impact of their work, but after they passed away, there's so much, their work was revived and everything, and books were written from their work and everything, and people much after they had gone are benefiting from their work and everything. Like, so we don't know and that's in the hands of Allah. We don't know which generation will bear the fruit of the work we do, but at least we can be the ones to start the process. And we know that the Quran is the Aman, the guardian, right? And the Prophet ﷺ told us in the tafsir of this ayah that instead of calling people to groups and to, like, like this jamaat or this giro or this group of people, call people to al khair, which is what, which is the Quran and the Sunnah, right? And then the word that the Quran uses here is beautiful, that is yad'una, comes from da'wah, which is to invite. Now, invitation by itself does not mean debate or argument or everything. When we, let's say, when we think of inviting somebody to dinner, right? We don't say, we were respectful inviting them. We don't say, okay, if you don't come for dinner, like, okay, you better see it, like you're in trouble, or like I'll harm you, or I'll kill you, or this and that. We don't say that. When we're inviting somebody, and we're respectful. Let's say I say, you know what, I come over to my house, I'm going to make biryani, I make really good biryani. And now I wouldn't say, you wouldn't say something like, oh, you don't really know how to make a good biryani. Like, come over at my house and then I'll show you what biryani is. Now, that's not an invitation. That's disrespectful, right? Even though factually it might be correct. The person who's inviting might be making the best of that food in that community or something. But then when they invite you, we invite respectfully, right? So Also, when we look at invitations, we can look at the advertising industry. Like advertising industry, what they do is they offer a sample of something. Like let's say when we go to a Costco, what they do is they have food samples, and like there's no pressure, there's like just the sampling here. Okay, here, try it. This is a sample, and we are saying, okay, this is the best piece of pie, or this is the best these are the best chips, or this is the best piece of this is the best pizza there is, or whatever. And just taste it. You're like, okay, fine, I'll taste it. And you taste it and you're like, okay, yeah, it is actually good. And then they're like, okay, if you like it, then this is the way to buy it. Otherwise, if you don't want to buy it, no pressure, right? So when you're inviting something, what you do is you give the message, and then you invite them, you give the thing, and then you, like for example, when we talk about Islam, we share what we find the best about Islam, how has Islam enriched my life and everything, and we share that goodness, and then we leave it at that. We leave the other person. When we invite, we don't demean the other person, we don't make the other person feel bad about themselves or anything. No, we start it has a good connotation to it, right? And a Muslim has this responsibility and this habit, both at individual level and at community level as well, right? That we call them to khair. And here, sorry, in this ayah, Allah Ta'ala has told us the way Allah Ta'ala structured this is so beautiful, that before giving any commands or like forbidding anything and everything, the first point is to invite, right? Because it's like before you go into good and bad and this and that, and this is right and this is wrong and this and that, first thing is to invite people. That's the first step. Because if you straight go to commanding or telling them don't do this or do this and everything, that's not going to work. People, the first step has to be invitation, right? And it's like first invite people and make them conscious of the position of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, their muqam in our lives, right? Like their and when somebody appreciates the entity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they will themselves ask you, like, what should we do for how can we please Allah? Once somebody understands who Allah is, or they start to understand, at least, like none of us can totally understand who Allah is, but like we start to understand some of his rahmah, we start to see some of his help in our lives, then we ourselves feel inside like, yeah Allah, what can I do for you? Well, like you're doing so much for me that I couldn't have imagined myself. So how do I please you? What can I do to make you happy? What will please you and everything, right? So people start asking. That's what happened with the Prophet Prophet's Sahabas as well. The Prophet connected them, kept connecting them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they kept, whenever, if even if they did some sin or some mistake in privacy, they would come to the Prophet ﷺ. They didn't have to do it, but they would come to the Prophet ﷺ and say, Ya Rasulullah, this happened and I did this. What can I do? How do I atone for this? Right? They didn't have to do it, but they would present themselves. And that's what happens when we connect people to Al Khair, right? So Al Khair is to invite people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And if we think about it, that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Asr as well. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Like, so we call people towards haqq, right? And to do that, first thing is that we can only call people when we are connected to people. So connecting to human beings, other fellow human beings, is really, really important in our deen. Teamwork is very important in our deen. So if we think about it, Adam alayhi salam was alone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a companion, Hawa radiallahu anha, and together they made a team, and through that they brought forth the next generation of children and everything. Like, so Adam and Hawa alayhi salam, and uh, as an extension, all of us as husband and wife, we are all teams, right? We are all teams that work together as in a family unit. Musa alayhi salam and Harun alayhi salam, they were a team. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Harun alayhi salam to Musa alayhi salam as a support and everything, right? And Ibrahim alayhi salam built the Kaaba along with his son Ismail alayhi salam. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated, he created muahat, brotherhood between Ansar and the Muhajirin, one Ansar, and that's such a beautiful system of integrating the refugees into the whole community, that one person, one Ansar, was responsible for one Muhajirin, and they were like, they would share, they were willing to share like their half their wealth, half their houses, half their like land, whatever they owned, and everything with each other, right? And even otherwise in our deen we see a lot of communal worships, like salah. There's a, like, we get together as a community to pray different kinds of salah. Then there is hajj, when we get together and we do hajj or umrah. Then zakat, to give zakat we need to find out what's happening in our ummah and everything, right? So Uh, and the Prophet ﷺ told us to the effect that faithful believer to another faithful believer is like the bricks of a wall, and we are enforcing each other. And while saying this, the Prophet ﷺ, what he did was he clasped his hands together by interlacing his fingers. And this is said that this is how the believers are. They support each other like the bricks of a wall, enforcing each other. So like when you give a reminder to me, when you tell me something about your some incident about your life, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped you or something, then you help me increase my iman. When I share with you something, then I'm helping you increase your iman. When we're reminding each other, when we are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we are helping each other to increase that remembrance, then we are doing that. We are being bricks of enforcing each other. And when we are calling each other to goodness, that's what we are doing. And in the previous ayah, we learned about holding fast to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And what we have to understand, what our scholars say is one thing we have to understand, that the rope of Allah is the strongest thing there is, right? So, and that can never break, but it can slip from our hands, right? And this rope has been there from the time of Adam alayhi salam to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam till the end of this life, till the day of Qiyamah. This rope is there, and it will always be the rope that's connecting us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now for us, if we hold on to it, then the help of Allah will come, right? If we leave it, then we are losing ourselves, and we are denying ourselves from the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the more we hold on tight to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the stronger we are, and the more the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come. And then so this is inviting, and then the next step that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us in this ayah is وَيَأْمُرُونَ bil ma'ruf, right? So they call towards goodness. And amar doesn't just mean like to order somebody something, but it also has a component of humility in it, to advise somebody, to request somebody to do something. And it could be in different forms, used in different forms. Like for example, let's say a child who's getting late for a class, and their friend says, you know what, like you should rush to, the class time's coming, right? You might get late, so just rush, like so the child is another the friend is advising his friend that okay, you should rush to reach the class on time. Now the same thing, let's say the mother is saying to the child. Now the mother is saying the same thing, okay, rush, you need to go to the class, otherwise you'll get late. Now the mother is the status of a mother, she's ordering the child. Now the same, it's amar, but the way it is presented in both cases is different, because the level and everything different. So amar could go in either ways, depending on the situation and depending on the relationship of the thing. So a believer is wise in that, like for example, we don't speak to a 3-year-old the same way like we will speak to an 80-year-old, or we don't speak to a scholar the same way that we will speak to a student. And we will be respectful to everybody, but there is a way of talking that will work for different people in a different way. So amar could cover all of them, like so we enjoin. So it's not just ordering, and it's not just advising or requesting, but it could take different forms. And so what a believer does is, a believer doesn't like just start to like show off, or like put the, like like the just push and shove people into this direction or that direction. They understand what's the situation of a person, and then they call people towards maruf. And maruf comes from arafa, and arafa is comes from the word urf. Urf is like the back of a horse, like the silky mane on the horse that is prominent when a beautiful Arabic horse, let's say they're running in the open, and then the beautiful back of the silky hair that you see. Or it could also be used for, urf is also used in Arabic for the red portion of the hen's neck, which is very prominent, right? Or another way it is used is for the white frothing portion of water, which sorry, which rises up when a wave crashes, and it's like it's so beautiful, but it's you can see it from a distance, like this white frothy portion of water and everything. And maruf is also used for a woman whose face is very beautiful. So um, so in conclusion, and taruf in also in Arabic is to give a good introduction to somebody, like so it's like what's the taruf of this person, like what's the to introduce somebody in a nice way. Like let's say there's a speaker who's going to speak, and you introduce them, okay, this person has done this, and like he's has this qualifications, and he's done this work, and then we introduce them in a nice and beautiful way. So in conclusion, the word ma'ruf it refers to something that is known, something that is prominent, like that is beautiful, that is attractive, and that is recognized by everyone, that like everybody agrees that this is right. Like, and how would you know that this is maruf? And maruf might differ from different people to people. So for example, if you look at um, and a lot of people like what matches their condition in the society, like, so this is something well known, let's say. So maruf for a group of kindergartners, let's say we have a group of kindergartners with us. So maruf for them will be like the alphabets and everything. But as a child grows older, the expectations change. Like, for example, a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old, we would expect them to, we would be upset with them if they don't put their dirty shoes on the side and they just walked in and everything. But if it's a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, be like, yeah, okay, I have to hold them and take off their shoes and everything, right? So as somebody grows older, the expected change, what is maruf for them changes. Like what is known, they how they should behave or everything, that changes, right? And uh, in a society that is ignorant, maruf would be, their maruf would be very low. Like their standards would be very low. Their commonly known standards would be very low. But generally speaking, if we see that there's a maruf would refer to all kinds of goodness, which the whole humanity, not just Muslims, the whole humanity would generally look at that and understand that to be good, like good treatment of parents, good treatment of relatives, neighbors, people who are helpless, truth, honesty, trust, justice, helping the oppressed people, right? So all these things, somebody who's thirsty, to give them water, like all Muslims, non-Muslims, all human beings, like to dress decently. Everybody looks at that as maruf. But then obviously when the societies get more and more ignorant, um, their level of maruf like deteriorates and everything. Although if in a normal healthy society, maruf would refer to all kinds of goodness that the akal understands, that, and this is by natural fitra. Akal and fitra both understand that these are good things. They're maruf for everyone, right? So if you look at like the Muslims in Makkah, they were being tortured, they were being harmed, they were being ridiculed, they were being made fun of, and everything. And yet, the ayat that were coming at that time were not coming about, okay, these are the civil rights of Muslims and you should respect them, you should take care of them. The ayat were coming about, don't kill the baby girl, give the orphan its rights. It was not saying give the Muslim girl its rights or give the Muslim orphan the right. All orphans, all girls, and everything, right? So the ayat are coming, which are about everybody. They are beautiful ayat, and they cover like all sections of society and everything, right? As opposed to that, when yanhauna anil munkar, yanhauna anil munkar, nakara is the opposite, the exact opposite of maruf, something that is unrecognized, something that is unheard of, alien, unacceptable, evil things that are unheard of. And in any society, when maruf goes down, then what happens is then munkar comes up, then weird kind of things crop up and people are like, oh, this is okay and that is okay. And generally people of munkar are very loud, right? And they are and if we look at in terms of what we are learning as what is al khair is the Quran and the Sunnah, right? Holding on to Quran and Sunnah. So munkar in that sense would be a real good, would be anything that Quran and Sunnah invite us towards. And munkar would be anything that the Quran and Sunnah um, uh, say that this is wrong, or um, this is bad. Like for example, even a person's mind, actually, if they actually use their mind, they will understand that alcohol is actually not good. What does it do? Like, it breaks families, it causes accidents, the road accidents and everything, by people who are intoxicated. People who are intoxicated, they indulge in domestic violence. They don't know how they're behaving. They apologize to their families later on in the morning, but they do crazy things when they're drunk, and they harm their own families and themselves a lot of times when they're drunk, and they wake up with a hangover and everything. It's a means of running away from reality. You don't really change anything when you're drunk. Like, if somebody gets really drunk just because they have so many tensions in their life and they're looking for escapism to like to they can't handle it anymore or whatever, then just being drunk by one night and then getting up in the morning, the situation's not going to change. They might have worsened it, but they're not going to solve anything out of it, right? So by drinking, nothing gets solved by it, right? So even the human mind, even a normal function. You can say the things that the Quran and Sunnah actually stop us from. If we look deeply, if we try to understand, then we will understand that those are the things that actually our fitrat tells us that they are not good for us, right? So so things which are clearly like munkar, and we can understand that in the light of Quran Sunnah, is like things like denial of God, unjustified killing of somebody, oppression, falsehood, breaking promises, cheating, lewdness, shamelessness, right? And if we think about that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given us a kind of Sharia and just dumped a kind of Sharia on us as a burden that we just have to do it. In fact, He has given every command that He has given us, He is Al Hakim. So every command that He has given us is based on His hikmah and based on He is Al Wadud and He is Ar Rahman as well towards us. So every command that He has given us, whether it is hijab, whether it's salah, whether it is hajj, whether it is being truthful, whether it's being modest, whether it's sticking to your marital partner and not engaging in zina, whatever He has given to us, and whether He has told us that a man should not be like a woman and a woman should not be like a man. Everything that when we obey it, it has good consequences. Everything that we don't has bad consequences. And um, the good and the evil presented by Islam, they contain those good and evil at the head of the list that are like pointed out by human nature as well. Our fitra agrees with it, right? And if we have to bring our ummah together and we have to save others as well from these kind of harms in the society, and like at a communal level in the sense, then we'll have to work towards islah of the people, right? And that would be through this da'wah, through calling people, and through like maruf and munkar, understanding what maruf and munkar is, instead of and the thing is, sometimes what happens sometimes is a lot of people what they do is when they're talking to somebody about Islam, or they're even advising somebody about something, they focus on, okay, this is wajib, these are sins, this is halal, this is haram. And they like a lot of times we will find that people will focus on secondary issues, and about which those issues are already open to ijtihad, and there are secondary opinions, and that's okay. But we don't stick to Maruf and munkar, something that is common, something that is recognized by the entire ummah, right? For example, let's say somebody's arguing about like moon sighting, whether Eid should be this day or that day and everything, although there is a difference of opinion which is allowed, and it's okay. Whichever masjid you follow. Like if you're in your city, different people are doing, so what if different people are doing it different day, right? It's okay. You can wish each other still, and like give each other food. If you're fasting that day, the other person's not, it's okay. You take the food from them if they're giving you, and you eat it in the evening, right? And you can feed them the next day. That's fine, alhamdulillah, not a big problem. But then there are people in our own families who are not praying their salah, who are leaving their salah, but we are not bothered about that, right? But we are like spending our time arguing about like this should be that, and the Muslim Ummah should be doing this and that. But the core things, like there are people who are cheating in business, there are people who are lying, there are people who are harming other people, there are people who have alcohol stores, there are people who are doing this, and there are people who are committing zina, and we come to know of that, and we're not bothered about those things, right? So what Islam's teaching us is that focus on these things, focus on ya'muruna bil ma'ruf and yanhauna anil munkar, that call people first, invite people towards the best, and then command them or request them or advise them towards the right, and forbid the wrong, right? But the thing is, whenever you will invite somebody towards the deen, whenever and what's the flavor that we are getting from ya'muruna bil ma'ruf and yanhauna anil munkar is that our deen is very unapologetic in speaking the truth sometimes, right? And this might mean in a family situation, for example, or an organization, it might mean confronting somebody, that somebody is doing something wrong, let's say in a business or a workplace or a family situation or any organization, somebody is doing something wrong, and to stand up for the truth, you'll have to confront them. And you might you might bear some losses, financial or otherwise, because you stood up for somebody else who was being oppressed and everything. Or you might stand up with somebody who was being oppressed, and that's so what will happen is, eventually through this you will make enemies, and truth is offensive, right? So, and because you're standing up with the truth, and truth is offensive at times, you will be attacked and you will be hit and you will have to bear some losses, right? And at that time, what will you need to have? You will need to have sabr, right? And so if we think about and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us watawasaw bil haqqi watawasaw bis sabr, and that adds another meaning to it, right? When you call people towards right and forbid the evil, and a lot of times, a lot of people, when you tell them something good, they're still okay with it. You say, you know what, you're doing this, how about you do this as well, or how you would do this thing like this, it's really better, and they're still open to it. But when you tell somebody they shouldn't be doing something, let's say somebody's addicted to overeating, or somebody's addicted to alcohol, or somebody's addicted to watching a lot of TV, or watching a lot of like social media or TikToks or videos or this and that, somebody's addicted to that. When we stop them from, when you try to stop them from that, that hurts the nafs, right? That really hurts the nafs, and that creates a lot of friction. By its very nature, when we say no to somebody about something, that is harder for another person to take than when we advise them to do something. So we have to understand that there will be consequences to it, but Islam doesn't tell us, okay, just be quiet and sit on the side. Obviously, there is wisdom involved, but then we deal with it. And the Prophet ﷺ said that by him in whose hand is my life is, you either enjoin good and forbid evil, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will certainly send his punishment to you. Then you will make du'as and it will not be accepted. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from this, right? So this is not just like, okay, you should do this. This is a command. We need to do this. This is a part of being a Muslim, that we need to stand up. We need to call to good. We need to forbid evil. And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us without asking, just because we are doing the things that we need in our life, but just because we are standing up for him, we are calling people to good. We are advising them. We are commanding towards the good, and we are forbidding the evil. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of our other needs. Um, that times, right? And and the Prophet ﷺ also said to the effect of that whoever amongst you sees an evil, let him change it with his hand. If he cannot do it, then let him change it with his tongue. If he cannot do even that, then let him change it with his heart, and that is the weakest of faith. And so what does this mean? This means the first thing is that when we see something happening in front of us, like let's say some things are, the police takes care of some things, but let's say I see somebody who's stealing in front of me, or I see somebody who's like teasing a woman, or like there's some astaghfirullah, ta'ala protect all of us and all of our children. There's some rape situation or something like that happening. Now we need to stop them, right? So somehow we need to stop them if we can. Then, so we've seen some evil happening in front of us, we need to change it either with our hand. If we cannot do it, if we're not in a position to do it, then with our tongue. Like if I cannot, like if there are five guys doing something, or everything, like chasing a woman or something and everything, and I know I cannot go and save her, then I can call 911 right away, right? Like I can do something with my tongue and everything. And then even if I can't do that, then at least make dua. At least, like if we see some wrong happening and we are not in a position to do any of that, at least make dua, although that is the weakest of faith. And we learn in other traditions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes a strong believer more than a weak believer. And so it's in different situations will demand different things. And we know that at the times of the Sahaba, if you look at their life, there were times they actually stood up for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded, and they even put their lives in danger. Now that is commendable, but that is not obligatory on everyone. Like everyone, obviously different people will have different levels of iman. And we shouldn't like push somebody which is not their level, they're not able to. So one thing is to also understand who is at what level, and then work according to that, right? Because that goes hand in hand with wisdom. And our teachers always say that we should work on activating, when you're giving dawah, when you're not just about Islam, but about anything, doing good in your own families, and like, okay, just encouraging somebody to be more involved in something, and to do not do something which is harmful for them or for others around them and everything. whatever good or the best things that we have to invite them towards us or tell them towards something, we have to use our wisdom. We have to ask Allah for wisdom. Why? Because let's say somebody is playing music, somebody's really addicted to music, and they keep playing. Now maybe they're of a nature that if I go and tell them, okay, can you just stop it, like it's really disturbing me and everything. Maybe if they are of that nature, that if I tell them, go and tell them that it will actually not activate their fitra but their ego, and what they're going to do is they're going to be make the volume even harder, right? And they'll be like, yeah, really, you're going to tell me to stop? Okay, now see, now I'm going to make even, they might not say that to us, but they'll act the opposite of what we've asked them to do, just to because like their ego's been activated, right? So one thing is to have that wisdom, and wisdom, none of us will have it ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns the wisdom. So sometimes we are like, oh my God, I should have thought this. Why didn't I think of this and everything? How I should have acted in this time and that time. No, no, no. We don't blame ourselves. We look at our situations and analyze them, but we ask Allah for wisdom, because Allah will give it to us. Like at what situation, with which person, how much firm we have to be and how much soft we have to be. Do we have to approach this person at this time with like kind words, or do we have to be slightly firm with them at that? So we'll have to ask Allah Ta'ala for that wisdom, and always make dua that, Ya Allah, help me to activate people's fitra, to so that like another thing that our teachers say is ego, for somebody's ego is like a sleeping lion. If you wake that lion up, it will eat you first, right? So we have to make sure that again we are working towards the fitra of people, not the ego of people. We don't wake up egos of people. If the ego is sleeping, let them sleep. Like work in a way with people that is good. And if you're doing the cleaning work of the society, it's all, what is all of this? Basically, it's the cleaning work of the society. Who has to do, if there is has to be the cleaning work of society, it has to be done by Muslims. And sometimes there are, just like physically, there are bacteria that are not visible, but still we disinfect our surfaces and things like that, right? So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects us as a Muslim ummah to be doing is we are conscious of the bacteria. We are conscious of the things that not even seen. Like sometimes things look very pretty. Sometimes something might look like, okay, it's really good and everything, but we see that no, this is, even though this is very loud, this seems very like celebratory in nature and everything, there is an evil hidden in this and everything, right? So um we do that, right? And then how will we do all of these things? First thing is, there are steps to this. First thing is, we have to understand ourselves first of all, right? So that we don't spread the wrong information. If a jahil gets up, then he will spread jahalat, right? So uh, you know, uh, um, an ilm that is not complete, an incomplete ilm, is more dangerous than no ilm at all, right? Because somebody who has no ilm will be like, okay, I don't know, I'll go and learn. Somebody who has a little bit ilm, they don't know everything, but they feel they know everything, and they'll end up keep saying that, right? So first thing is we have to be clear ourselves that what we have to invite others for, and their level and our level as well, right? So there's something that an organizational level people can do, right? For example, like in like until some time back, like now things are different, but until some time back, like for example, at places like Saudi, there used to be a group of people, they would call them shurta. They would come and they would actually stop people. Okay, it's the salah time. Why you here? Okay, go pray, right? So they would actually do it at the organization level, like Mela protected. Some things are not like that anymore, but there were times not very long ago that this used to happen, right? And when organizations don't do that, people who are responsible, they don't do that, then everybody starts doing their own thing, right? So but if we look at the how our deen is, then we have to keep going back to Quran and Sunnah, and every person keeps doing talks according to their level. So, for example, when the Prophet ﷺ, when he was in Makkah, he was giving, he started with himself, then he was inviting his family, then his friends, then other people and everything. But after Hudaybiyah, many years later, after Hudaybiyah, now he's a ruler. Now what did he do? Now his capacity is different. Now he's the ruler of Medina and everything. He's in a different position. Then he wrote letters to other rulers, inviting them to Islam. He wrote letters to Heraclius and the Khusro and the Najashis of that time, right? And he wrote the letters to all of them, inviting them to Islam. Now he's a ruler. He's in a capacity. He's at the same position as other rulers, and he's sending them letters, inviting them. And in another hadith, we learn that the Prophet ﷺ told us that all of you are shepherds, and you will be asked about those under your care. Like, for example, a woman would be asked about her own home first, right? And so there are different things that we do, but when we will do these things, also another thing is we have to do all of these things, right? It's not like you just call towards khair. There's no or in between, there's and. Wow, right? So it's like you call towards khair and you bid the fair and you forbid the unfair. So it's not like whoever we meet there is one prescription for all. It's like uh, somebody might need a light touch towards whatever they're doing. Somebody might need a gentle push. Somebody might need some tough love, and same person might need different things at different times, right? So, and that was the quality of our Prophet ﷺ. When he interacted with different people, he knew what level to act with the different people, and what he carried all by himself. The whole ummah together cannot carry that kind of hisan in doing things, but he's our role model and we keep trying. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, then the people who do this, those are the people who will be successful, right? The community that maintains such measures and these are the measures to hold on fast to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They alone will prosper in this life and the next life to come. So, and in this life, we might see some harms coming our way, like some people might be cut off from us. And it's almost like, like a detox. Some things like just like when we detox, some things are removed from our life, some harmful diets are removed from our life, and it's a bit hard at first to leave that junk food and everything, but it's a detox. It's good for us in the long run, right? And so sometimes Allah Ta'ala detoxes people from our life. Sometimes we lose the fear that we had because of certain challenges that we feel. We were fearful about something, we were fearful about something, we feared something, but then just when we stood up and everything, we lose that fear. Allah Ta'ala puts the strength in us, right? And those are successes too in this world, right? So especially us who are learning the Quran and who are teaching the Quran, those we have this added responsibility, right? And nobody can say that I can't do anything. I am like majboor. I don't have much resources. Everybody has some resources. Everybody can do something, right? And when we are not doing anything at all, when we are just busy in our own entertainments, and we are not just bothered about whatever is going on, it's okay, it's not touching my family, so why should I be bothered? Even if there's some wrong happening around me, when we're not even bothered to the point that we're not even making dua for it, we're not even disturbed by it, then we are going towards that time that our duas are even not accepted. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us and may Allah Ta'ala guide us, right? So again, like we said, like different situations. So this job that we need to do, it will need preparation. It will need to do these things, to invite people towards the best, to order the good and to forbid the evil. It will need preparation. It will need us to be learned, to have the capability, to spend the time, to have efforts, to have the wisdom, to have the knowledge of the questions involved, and like what are the methods that we can use that will make our call effective in the light of the Sunnah. And the more we learn the Sunnah and the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, the more we learn that and everything. Then we will be that balanced ummah who will give witness for the mankind, right? There's advice, there's persuasion, there's efforts, and sometimes force is also required. And when Muslims are in power, when we have been in power before, they and truly be in power in the right sense, in the right khilafah, then we are supposed to use this power to promote what is good and to forbid the evil as well. And so this a lot of scholars also say that this refers to the concept of khilafah, right? That task of amar bil maruf and nahi anil munkar will require more than just verbal advice and admonition. It must also be enforced by the law and authority at some in some cases at some point, right? So there's also an importance of political power hinted to be vested in the Muslim community. And the Sahabas understood that because the first thing that they did after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, they attended to this need of establishing a khilafah on the pattern of the Prophet's model of guidance. And they understood that we need to establish that quickly so that we can uphold what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to do, so that we can monitor and stand guard, so that there's no deviation from the ideal of holding on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So when we do all these three things, from these three things will came out all the departments of the Khilafah, which form the basis of all internal and external responsibilities of the Ummah. So the leaders have a responsibility and the followers also have a responsibility. Like We don't become blind followers and follow every whim and fancy of the leader. We become the true believers are the honored part of the community. They play a role in implementing the rules and the policies. They sometimes they even need to criticize the leaders when obviously in a dignified manner and everything. A believer doesn't engage in insults and being insensitive and everything. They understand that leaders are human too, so they will correct at times and oppose in a dignified manner. And there's also concept of shura in our religion, when people will come together and discuss and get the opinions, and it will instill brotherhood and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So no leader will make a decision just based on personal interest, right? And there's a consultation panel that the Khilafah used to have. And even the Prophet ﷺ, we know he used to consult the companions who were close to him, and he would request their opinions and everything, and then he would make a decision in the major things involving the whole community. So basically what we are learning here is that as long as we do these three tasks, we are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inshallah take us towards success. So may Allah ta'ala make us of those people who not just invite people, but invite people to the best, and invite people in the most beautiful way to the best. And then as going forward from them, we advise people. Sometimes we order, sometimes we request people towards the right thing, something that is maruf, something that everybody understands to be good, and we stop people from doing bad. And as a result, may Allah Ta'ala make us successful in this world and in the afterlife. Just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala joined us and sisters in Islam in this world, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reunite us as sisters in Islam on the day of judgment under the shade of his throne, when there will be no shade except his. And then once again in Jannatul Firdaus. May Allah Ta'ala accept our coming together and make this a means of increasing our iman and the iman of anybody who listens to us at any time. And any goodness that comes is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any shortcomings that are there are from us, from myself, as I'm human, open to mistakes. May Allah ta'ala still accept our broken efforts and make it a means of our maghfirah and closeness to him. آمين يا رحمن الرحيمين. سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك 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 ونتوب إليك.